Right back here. Yeah.
Is Harry Dresden going to make it to the screen again?
Is Harry Dresden going to make it to the screen again? I am willing to forgive Hollywood. For The Sorcerer's Apprentice. I'm just saying, if you take the poster from the comic book, I'm just saying they look somewhat similar. And Nick Cage is the only guy in Hollywood I absolutely know has read the Dresden Files. If it had been anybody but him, I wouldn't have been suspicious at all. I do have the rights back from Universal now, so they're available. There have been people who have approached me about it, but the saying goes, they're never serious until the check clears. So there's always talk. Let me get some folks at the back. Right here, dark curly hair.
If you had a choice, who would you have play Harry on screen?
If I had a choice, who would I have play Harry on screen? Oh man, I don't know. I would want somebody who could do the part well. He wouldn't necessarily have to look like Dresden for me to be really happy. It could be Will Smith just for the sheer lip off. Because he's a character. He's very, very good at pulling off that character. He will say, you know, the worst thing he could possibly say at the worst time to the worst person every time. He's good at that. Captain Tight Pants would do the so, you know, if Nathan ever gets bored of having his own Star series that he's in, you know, we can go talk to him. Right here, Fisher.
Do you think Murphy will pick up the sword for good?
Do I think Murphy will pick up the sword for good? I'm not gonna tell. Because that's no fun. Why find out about it when it happens? That's the good part of the story. Right here.
Do you still find time to LARP while you have to write?
Do I still find time to LARP while I have to write? Indeed. And I play it. Actually, I took my fortune that I should have spent on the Lamborghini or something, from what everybody told me, and bought a LARP farm. It's cool. It's like 160 acres, about 140 of which is 200-year-old forest. It looks like Last of the Mohicans in there. It's awesome.
I bow to you. I'd come LARP with you.
Can I marry you?
Wait in line!
Send me an email. But yeah, I mean, I still LARP at the Central Chapter in Heroic, and I played 3 games since the beginning of the summer. I had to take the last couple off. But after I get home, there's a big 12-day event. 12 days. Wow. That's more hardcore than I want to do. But I think I'm going to show up for the last 4 or 5 in Tennessee. So, in the Dresden hat. The Dresden hat.
I'm also a fan of the Codex Alera books, so I was wondering, what are the chances of you writing another series?
What are the chances of me writing another Alera series? Or just another series in general?
Just another series.
100%, because I have to get a break from that Dresden guy, or I hate him. By the time I get to the end of a book, it's like, man, I am so sick of hanging out with you. It's not that he's a bad guy or anything. It's just like, you know, when you have family come to visit, and the first, 3-4 days, it's great, and then, and after that, it's just a ticking clock until somebody picks up a knife. But yeah, I'm working on a trilogy right now that is probably going to be the prequel trilogy for my epic fantasy epic that I'm going to write one day. It's so epic, it needs a prequel trilogy. And it's largely inspired by the Black Company. So,
Nice.
let's see, back here, pink shirt. Yeah. Who is my favorite author? Robert Parker.
You should have said Shannon.
Well, I probably should have said Shannon, but she wouldn't have believed it because I haven't read her stuff. I used to when she was still working up to being the writer. I would read her stuff and critique it for her. But she and I the last time we wrote something together was our junior year of high school, and we just about gouged out one another's eyes with our number 2 pencils. But my favorite author, Robert B. Parker, the author of the Spencer Mystery series and several others. Excellent writer, dead now. But I think some other good ones are Brandon Sanderson. I picked his stuff up recently. Rothfuss, I hate that guy. Although he is the sweetest guy in person. Oh yes, I saw the picture of Rothfuss stroking his copy of Ghost Story with his beard. I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to get that out of my head, no matter how hard I try. Right back here.
You mentioned Robert Parker. I'm curious if there's any connection between that and Susan character and her fate.
I mentioned Robert Parker. Is there any connection between that and the Susan character and her fate? No, not really. I had to name her something. So it was Susan. Actually, I think it was probably the tick that influenced that more than anything. Susan? Oh, now you're not even trying. Right here.
You said you'd already written the first sentence of the next book. Will you tell us what it is now?
Okay, he wants to know the first sentence of the next book, and is there anybody here who doesn't want to be spoilered?
No.
Okay, if you don't want to be spoilered, put your fingers in your ears, because and everybody else I think would probably want to know. Ma'am has unique ideas on physical therapy. and we'll kind of go from there.
Okay, so I write, and I know that there's always like 8 billion things that you come up with that are super cool, and you can't fit them into the book with a crowbar. Would you like to tell us some of those, by any chance?
She says she writes and she knows there are always 8 billion super cool things that I come up with that I couldn't fit in the book with a crowbar. And could I tell you some of them? Really, it's not, my process doesn't work like that. I'm a fundamentally lazy writer. I try and build the book as lean as I possibly can, just because it makes the editor's job easier, and then they like me and take me out to dinner. So there are a few things that have gotten taken out. I think there was. When I was working with Jen Heddle, the original Dresden Files editor, she came back with the manuscript to Grave Peril and said, this is awesome, and I want you to expand on these 4 storylines and cut the book by 50 pages. And I said, so you want me to make the book larger and smaller? She says, yes, and hurry. I think there was a scene with a ghoul that I planned on using for ghoul-related foo in Chicago that I had to delete. There was a vampire attack where the vampire tried to tear out the Blue Beetle's engine and didn't realize it was in the back, not the front. Yeah, but those are the only really large things that I dropped.
Is Carlos still a virgin?
Is Carlos still a virgin? I'm not going to tell you. Right here, glasses.
Are we ever going to see Sue the T-Rex again?
Are we ever going to see Sue the T-Rex? Are you kidding? I couldn't just let that sit. No, yeah, we're going to see her. It might be a while, but we're gonna get her out again because that was just too cool to not do it. Right here, sitting down, green shirt.
Have we met the people who created those Hexenwolfen belts yet?
That created the what?
Hexenwolfen belts.
Have we met the people that created the Hexenwolf belts yet? That's another item. I'm not going to tell you a question. I will say kind of, not really, and yes. But we'll get into more of that during Cold Days as well too. So, yeah.
Are we gonna see any more of the? Are we gonna see the Jade Court?
The Jade Court of Vampires. Are we going to ever see the Jade Court get involved in things? They're really isolationist, which means they just don't care what's happening outside their own sphere of influence, which is largely China. And we're not going to see them. We're not going to see them definitely in any of the case books. They might show up in the big old trilogy I'm going to do at the end. So, yeah, there's going to be. That's the plan. In case you didn't know, there's going to be about 20-ish of the Dresden Files, depending on whether or not my kid goes to grad school. And then I'm going to write a big old apocalyptic trilogy for the very end.